Some people need to make you feel like the bad person so that they can avoid feeling guilty for what they did. One thing that I notice about chronic manipulators is that they all have low self-esteem. And because they feel so bad about themselves, they need to make you feel bad about yourself so that they can remain in power, feel like they're safe, and feel like they can control you. Because that's what matters to them. People who manipulate others for their own personal gain is trying to make sure that they remain above you. Because without that security, without that power, without that control, they feel unsafe. They feel like their world is gonna crumble any second because they don't have any leverage. The only way that they make themselves feel good or better is by making other people feel worse. But that doesn't actually make them better because they're operating from a place of ego. And true confidence doesn't come from a place of needing other people to be worse than you to feel good about yourself. It comes from a place of knowing that you are enough, other people are enough, and it's not a competition. If you're stuck in a relationship right now thinking, why am I always the bad guy? How come every time I bring up a conversation to them about how I feel, some way or another, it turns into me being bad, I'm so sensitive, I should have done this or that, and there's never any accountability taken. If this sounds like you, I'm here to tell you it's not you. It's them. And let's break down the psychology around why this happens and how to avoid being manipulated in your relationships. Now, we talked about manipulation before, but the thing about people who have such a hard time admitting whenever they're wrong and actually taking accountability for their actions hold a big wound of shame, which means they don't see their actions or behaviors that you're calling out as a mistake. They see it as bad. And on top of that, they attach their self-worth to it. So it's not just I did a bad thing, but it's I did a bad thing, which means that I am a bad person and there's something wrong with me. And it goes into this narrative of, why did I do that? Am I defective? There's something wrong with me. I should have known better. And because this narrative is so painful and it's tied to such a deep wound from childhood, they want to avoid it as much as they can. And sometimes avoiding it means projecting it onto the person that they love. Because they're not focused on how you feel. They're focused on avoiding that feeling of feeling like such a horrible person again. And so they will deflect and defend and make you feel like the bad person because that cannot be them. And so you'll often notice that they might lie or hide things or omit the truth to avoid this painful narrative. And while you might perceive it as this is an opportunity for me to share how I feel and maybe we can fix this, they see it as you are telling me that I'm not good enough and I must defend myself. Now, I'm not sharing this to justify their behaviors, but I'm sharing this to give you a little bit more insight on why this is actually happening. Because the truth is, it's not about you. It's about their wounds. But if you have an insecure attachment style and you start personalizing this, it is very easy to start thinking that, wow, am I not good enough? Am I not good enough to be seen, heard, and understood? Why am I constantly fighting in this relationship? Why am I constantly defending myself? And you'll start telling yourself, my emotions, thoughts, and feelings are not good enough. They're not important enough to be acknowledged, and it is constantly normal for it to be dismissed. But this doesn't have to be the case. If you want to break out of the cycle, it's important for the manipulator to acknowledge what is happening and be able to admit that this is a wound that they have. But it's also something that you cannot shame them into because that will only force them into a corner even more. It's important that they have that safe space to open up, maybe not with you at first. It could just be with a therapist, it could be with a coach, or someone that gives them a safe space to do so. Of course, it's important for you to also set your boundaries so that you protect yourself from being manipulated and stuck in the cycle. So instead of brushing it off and telling yourself it's not a big deal, it's always like this, trying to argue and try to help them understand what is happening, you need to show them with your actions that this is not a type of behavior that you're willing to accept. If they end up lying and if they end up trying to manipulate or blame you, you need to make sure that you don't participate in this type of conversation and let them know that you are not going to sit for this. And at the end of the day, if they are not willing or able to get to that space of admitting that there is something that they want to work on, it is not a relationship that you can sustain. Because this dynamic will always happen. The manipulation will always happen. And no matter how much you understand it, it is not justified. And you will will end up being the one that is hurt because they are not able to get to that space and have that capacity to move forward. Which means you have to ask yourself, if nothing changes, is this a relationship that you're okay with continuing? Because you don't want to go into the relationship thinking that you need to change someone. That other person's not going to feel good about themselves either, feeling like they have a partner that constantly wants to change them. Of course, we all have patterns and things that we can work on and grow, but it is a decision that we as an individual have to make ourselves. And I know you want to make them understand, I know you want them to get it, but you cannot make someone that is not willing to understand you. They will always find a reason to misunderstand you. But if you are someone that has trouble admitting the truth and you constantly feel the need to manipulate and lie, then this is what you need to know. Number one, it is not your fault that these wounds and these fears are showing up, but it is your responsibility to heal. Because at the end of the day, hurt people. And if we don't take that responsibility and be willing to heal, we are only going to hurt our partners further. But if you're ready to go to the next steps of healing, these are 3 practical steps that you can be mindful of moving forward. Number 1, understand that what you do does not define who you are as a person. Just because you do something that is a mistake or bad, it doesn't mean that you as a person are defective or bad. It just means that you made a mistake, which is normal because we are human. At the end of the day, we are not perfect, and to put that on ourselves is to set ourselves up for failure. Understand that these mistakes does not mean that you're a failure, but it's an opportunity for you to learn from them. And not only that, but mistakes mean that you're trying. It means that you are moving closer to the right direction. Of course, this doesn't mean that the other person owes you their loyalty if you constantly hurt them over and over again and make the same mistake, because an apology is also changed behavior. But this leads me into my next 2 steps, which is self-compassion. In order to heal shame, you cannot shame yourself out of shame. It needs to be dealt with compassion and grace. Instead of telling yourself, oh, I should have known better, why did I do this? Tell yourself, maybe this is the only way that I knew how to heal and cope in this moment. I used the tools that I best knew growing up so that I can navigate the situation. It was wrong, it was not something that was appropriate, but I will take the next steps to move forward and do better. Of course, if you want more personalized, in-depth affirmations, book a clarity call with me and then we can go over what your next steps look like for healing shame. But last but not least, step number 3, understand that shame only subsides when we are willing to be vulnerable. Now, this is going to be such a scary step for y'all to take, especially if you are not used to sharing and being vulnerable and admitting when you're wrong. But the truth is, the faster you learn that you are not alone, that you also make these mistakes and other people make these mistakes, is the faster that you will let go of that shame. Because the truth is, shame grows from hiding yourself, from feeling like you can't tell anyone else these things that you've done because they won't understand. But once you start sharing, once you start finding a community that supports you and helps you heal and understand that everyone also makes mistakes, it will be a lot easier for that shame to slowly subside. But with that said, I hope this video helps for either the partner that is experiencing this manipulation or the partner that is willing to heal their wounds. Comment down below which side you're on, and if there's any questions that you might have, I'll love to answer them in the comments down below. But with that said, I hope that these videos helped, and please subscribe below if you like any personal development or healthy relationship videos. I make those weekly. And give this video a like if you like this video, but I'll see you in the next one. As always, you got this.